I'm Katrina, and this is Sew and Tare. Today we're talking about vermiculture. Worms are a great way to compost your kitchen scraps. You can do this in an apartment, you can do this in a house, you can do this in a big yard on a ranch. You can do it in a lot of places. I happen to have this in the corner of my screen-in porch, so it's outside but protected from the elements. In my experience, I have found that you don't want them to get too hot because they will try and escape the box and die, and they will die inside the box if the box gets too hot. If they get too cold, that's also an issue, and if they get rain on them, that's also an issue. So this one has holes in the tops for breathing holes, and it's not airtight around the edges. And this one does not have it on the top, but it's pretty loose around the sides. This one I have not been able to find again. I like this one more because it holds the correct moisture level, whereas this one is the new one, and it tends to dry out more and quicker. So some things to talk about with worms is you can put a lot of your kitchen scraps in it. They eat basically anything except for meat, bread, citrus, and alliums. Alliums are garlic and onion, that family. I have also had them not eat ginger. Like I scrape ginger and I put the scrapings into it, and that ended up molding. So there's probably some other things that you probably shouldn't put in there, but doesn't harm them. Alright, here's something not to do. These stickers don't get broken down in worm bins, so they're a whole lot easier to remove when the sticker is on the banana before it's been peeled, and kind of hard to get off once the peel is not there, or once the inside of the banana. It's kind of hard to get off once the inside of the banana is gone. So do that before you peel your banana. So one thing talking about worms is you have your greens and your browns for composting. The greens are everything that comes out of your kitchen, right? The browns is anything that is like a dead plant material. So you can use leaves that have fallen and cuttings of little twigs and stuff. You can use those things, but what I found is most useful is to use shredded paper, and didn't get that first. So the shredded paper I just put through a paper shredder, and it has to be oiled like once in a while, and they make things for that to oil them. But what I generally do is I add some material, green material from the kitchen. We generally use these containers, usually has a top on them. I collect a couple containers worth before I feed the worms. I found that when I put it in every time I was using it and tucking it underneath the paper that's in there, it was a really kind of cumbersome, and it didn't appear to work that well. So that's what I do. You do what you need to do. They are red wigglers. Wrigglers? I don't know if they're red wigglers or red wigglers. Anyway, they're not earthworms. They're regular. They're red, and they have compost jobs to do. So right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to harvest some of the worm poop, some of the worm castings. We call them castings. And in the past, what I've done is I've tried to separate all of the worms out from all of the castings and all of the egg casings, and that just takes forever. So I have made the decision on my homestead to let them live in the yard. I can get most of them and return them back to the box, but the ones that I don't get right now, that's fine, and they can live in the yard. So this is the corner of my screening porch. I have 2 worm bins. This one I like better. I think it manages it better. This one, you can't find it anymore. This one is the newer one, and it seems to have more chances for worms to get out and more chances for moisture to get out when you don't want it to. It has a spout at the bottom. They both have this. They have a spout at the bottom, and so I just put a little garbage can, and that is for the leachate. That is the liquid portion of the waste. So when you do vermiculture, you're turning food into compost and leachate. So when you open the lid of one of these, you're generally going to find a bunch of worms on the lid and a bunch of worms around the outside. So this is what the red wiggler worm looks like. And I try not to let them escape out this handle. You'll see other bugs in there, and that's fine. They help with composting. They help them do their jobs. This doesn't stink at all. You can see here's a tomatillo. Need more light. There's a tomatillo casing that they've eaten the leaf part out of and left the veins so far. But this is actually almost done. But the one underneath is definitely done. So we're gonna go work on that one. I'm gonna lift this one up, and the bottom one you'll see is completely done. So this is done. This is done. It's good. It's a little moist, but this is totally done. This stuff is almost done, but we're going to put that on the bottom and collect this. Oops. And it is heavy. So what I generally do, well, is I put this on top, but let me get all these worms down first. So I'll squish them. They're living their best life in here. Food forever. So these guys don't like light. So if I were to leave this open, which is what I do sometimes, if you were to leave this open, they will go down. So they're gonna go down into the soil or into the castings and be away from the light. So that's a way that you can sort if you would like to sort them out. Like if you were selling the worms or something, you could sort them by using light. I've just decided that it's easiest to take them out mostly and then you know, let some of them live in the garden.
Focus it.
Filming now? So something else that you'll get is you will get things starting to grow. And sometimes that's how I get my my seeds start, a lot of times things like the pumpkin seeds will start to grow in your worm compost, and it's pretty cool because then you can just, if it's the right season, you can just take them outside and put them in the yard. Super awesome. So the majority of this is going to not have worms in it because it was on the bottom and because it's so well done. Sometimes around the avocado pits, there's particular things that like to be around. Like there's a little baby, and I just toss them back in when I see them. If I don't see them, or if it's not very much, then I don't toss them back in. I'll just let them go live in the yard when we get there. So sometimes we don't use our, well, often, usually we don't use our compost right away. Often we let it sit, and when that happens, it tends to get hard. Like here's some that sat for too long, but the nutrients are still there. And we can crumble this up and put them in new beds when we use them. Sometimes I like to use old soil bags, and that will retain some of the moisture. So here's another little baby. And if it retains too much moisture, I mean, that's fine in a general sense, as long as you get to it for a while, you know, soon enough. But when you you let it sit too long, it can get too dry, and that's different. So here's another clump with a few worms. No big ones yet. Big ones must all be on top. You could throw the seeds back in, hoping that they grow, but they're not going to. The worms don't eat the seeds. They eat all the other material, but they don't eat the seeds. And that is that's okay. And if the seeds germinate, they germinate. And if you saw my video on the there's a bigger one. If you saw my video on the volunteers in your garden, then you know that that's sometimes a beneficial thing, is to have plants that you can rely on. And a lot of those seeds come out of these. So for example, I know for a fact that I have had plants in the yard of a couple of different kinds of squash and a Cape gooseberry. I still can't think of the other name for it. Ground cherry. There we go. The ground cherries that we have are all from the worm cast. Not all, but all the ground cherries that we have are from the worm castings. And it was actually some fruits that we didn't like that we bought at the store, and I just fed them to the worms. So there isn't any waste there, but it came up in the yard, and poof, we have some really good fruit that we did not like the parents of, because they harvested them too early. So I'm not gonna have you guys watch all of this. We'll come back when it's empty. So what we got from that one bin was this amount, and we think it might be a little bit more than a 5 gallon bucket, or a little bit more than half a 5 gallon bucket. There are some things that just take a long time to break down or don't break down. This is a mango seed, and it's falling apart, but it's not broken down yet. The avocado skins, they don't break down for a long time. And then the pits, oh, I thought I had a pit. There's another worm. The pits break down over time as well. So those are things that you're going to have left over, and I've just decided that I don't need to pick those things out. They can go into my yard and decompose there, and that's fine. So then, now that we've harvested all of that black gold for free, we're going to start filling this container. Now, this container. Now, if you're starting a new one, then you need to start with something on the bottom. And so that means you're going to put some sort of substrate. A lot of these things come with coconut coir, stuff like that. So you can use that. You can use just regular potting soil as, you know, a little bit of substrate. They need something to be in there, something to lay their eggs in before they start breaking down the food that you put in. And also when you start, don't give them too much food. You'll want to give them a lot of food and you'll end up having a lot of mold issues. So they will grow into a nice colony of worms if you treat them well. So we're going to add some greens from the kitchen, and for this I've left a little bit in the bottom that you can see. And actually, let me go ahead, keep over there. Let me add just a little bit of paper to the bottom. So that's where I threw most of the baby worms. Actually, there are some older ones too. But I'm just putting a little bit on the bottom just so that it has a little bit between that layer and the one underneath it. And then we can start throwing things in. These are skins from our pineapple guava. I did a video on that if you want to watch that. You can either eat the skins or not. We also included some brown napkin. You know, paper can go in here. And it all gets broken down or eaten by the worms. Now, this worm bin does not stink right now. There's a tea bag, banana peels. It doesn't stink. And the only way it's going to stink is, one, if you waited too long and you put stinky things in it, which that's a little stinky, or two, if your moisture's off. So every time you add food to it, you need to add some sort of browns. And for me, what that means is paper. Now here's an avocado that was bad when we got it and we just stuck it in this container. I'll put that down, and maybe tomorrow we will come back and see what that looks like, because they're going to chow down on that. Let's clear a spot here and put it right there. Another fun thing to put in these is cantaloupe, because they'll eat everything but the lace, and then the lace will go away eventually. And by lace I mean the outside of the rind, the cantaloupe. So this is how I do it. And they can have almost anything. So now that we've had our food in there, we can now put more of the paper shreddings. So I just bring it over, sprinkle it over. If it's too wet, you might get fruit flies and mold. So that's your indicator of putting more moisture in. Or sorry, less moisture. You have too much moisture, so you put more paper in. Also, if that happens, make sure that your valve here at the bottom is open. So you want that to be open at all times with a container underneath it. You can close it, like if you go to dump this container, that's when I would close it. But other than that, I just leave it open. So this one is now ready to close up, and we will do that. And I'll come back tomorrow and check on those avocados and see how they've done with that. So when you close it, this has a thing, it's removable. I don't know why it's removable, but it is. This has a thing that blocks the handle. Other ones have different designs. So you just want to make sure that that is still on there and that you press down the sides all the way. So that is all about worms and vermiculture, vermicompost, making your own black gold. So if you have questions, put down in the comments, and if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. Thank you. So I know I was going to do this the next day, but it's been 9 days since we put in that avocado. Let's see what we find. Alright, let's see if we can find anything. Fill in there as a flashlight, maybe. Oh yeah, look at all that goodness down there. There's our avocado. Yep, they've been eating it. So, sorry I lost out on the 1 day adventure. We'll do that later.